Good morning, everyone. It's amazing to have so many of you here with us this morning at Ouronyx, and a very, very big thank you for joining us at another event in the Beauty Triangle's Week of Wellness here in Dubai. I'm Francesca Ogiman-White, and I'm the founder of the Beauty Triangle. Now, for anyone here who's new to our events, a little bit of background. We launched the Beauty Triangle in London in 2019 as really a way to educate and empower our audiences on all aspects of their health and well-being, and always holistically. But it was also our intention to create a safe space where we could have the conversations that no one else was having, and in doing so, host them in collaboration with some of the most sought-after names in wellness, experts that we know, we trust, and that we rely upon to put genuine information out there. In an era of misinformation, this is really, really important to us, and it's something that really sort of forms our philosophy at the Beauty Triangle. We started in London, and now we're here in Dubai doing the same thing, which is really exciting. And I think another key part for us is really trying to break down the sense of overwhelm that a lot of us experience when it comes to well-being. I often think that there are so many trends and treatments and therapists all out there jostling for our attention. And so we really need to cut through that noise sometimes and help our consumer audiences make safer and better informed decisions that are ultimately right for them. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce our amazing panelists this morning. We're joined by ENT surgeon and aesthetic practitioner, Dr. Maya Shahsavari, hair pioneer and co-founder of the prestigious Neville Hair Beauty in London, Elena Lavagni, and finally, professor of psychology and the woman behind this amazing space that we're sat in here today, Ida Banek. And together we're going to be exploring the power of communication. After all, I'm sure we can all agree that as time and age start to manifest, confidence can start to elude us a little bit. Sometimes we start to feel less relevant, invisible even, whether that's professionally or even personally. So today we're going to be talking about the everyday tricks, the styling tips, the high-tech treatments, and even the changes that we can make to our internal dialogue to really help us reframe that sense of self and ultimately communicate newfound strength, both in the present day, but also as we go into the future and our identity starts to shift. I think that's probably enough from me. A few quick things just to alert you to. You've probably been given a program upon entering. You'll find information on all of our key speakers there, as well as the all-important Instagram handles, and also a referral card. So if you'd like us to connect you with anyone that you hear speak here today, you can leave your details and we'll facilitate the introduction after this. We have time for audience questions at the very end, so if anything comes up that you'd like to chat about more, we'd love to hear from you at the end. And finally, we have an amazing goodie bag that you've hopefully all found on your chair. I think there's an invitation to return to Ouronyx in there with an amazing SkinCeuticals facial and consultation, as well as a trio of an incredible SkinCeuticals products. I think all three of them are on my face this morning, so hopefully there'll be a spare goodie bag going. But without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Dr. Maya. We'll do a quick introduction to everyone, and then we'll get started with the main conversation. Over to you, Maya.
Thank you. So my name is Maya. I'm an ear, nose and throat consultant and a voice specialist from the UK. I've joined Ida and Ouronyx over the last couple of weeks, and this is my new home. Thank you for having me here. I'm also an aesthetic doctor with a special interest in facial reconstruction. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Elena Lavagni, and I come from London. I have a hairdressing salon in Pond Street in Belgravia, which houses 75 hairdressers, 7 manicurists, and 5 beauticians. So
You're a busy lady.
It's something to do. It's in 5 stories. And also, I've opened the first ever Amazon hairdressing salons. We opened up in Shoreditch in 2020, and yes, it's it gives me a perspective of a mass market, what the Amazon clients will do on every day, and to our clients on a higher level of the spectrum. So it's a good balance to understand what the ladies, our clients, tend to need, and what they want, and if it's achievable.
Thank you, Elena.
And I'm Ida. I am the co-founder of the Ouronyx business, both here in Dubai and in London. I'm passionate about anything that is related to beauty that stems from health. I am obsessed a bit with psychology and the role it plays in the understanding of beauty and its evolution in the future. I'm super excited of having you all here. Thank you for coming, and I hope you will enjoy.
Thank you, Ida. So our first speaker is Dr. Maya. She's already introduced herself to you, but just a little bit of background. Dr. Maya recently relocated from the UK to Dubai. I think you've been here all of 2 weeks, so we're throwing her in at the deep end, but she's a brilliant speaker. She also has one of the most fascinating specialisms in aesthetics that I've come across, so we'll dip into that a little bit later. But I'd love just to set the scene with you first, Maya. You do some really beautiful facial injectables. I think that's really the cornerstone of the sort of Ouronyx philosophy. I'd love to know how you're using those in practice to really communicate newfound strength and confidence for the patient through their facial anatomy.
Sure. One of the reasons that I joined Ouronyx was Ida's philosophy of mindful aesthetics. And that's really at the core of how I live my life, mindfulness and being intentional with everything. Part of being intentional about everything is being intentional about yourself as a person, who you are, your sense of identity, and your life, generally speaking. I bring that same sincerity to aesthetics as I did into my surgical job with emergency covers and 3 a.m. phone calls for airway emergencies. The same authenticity, the same mindfulness, the same intentionality. And I feel that in the field of aesthetics, our clients deserve exactly that, because I'm very intentional about my face, what goes into my face, and who does it. And I feel that they deserve the same level of care when they come to us. So one of the biggest struggles, I guess, as human beings is our sense of identity. And as women, we are so judged on how we look, so much so that we are willing to not look like ourselves anymore in order to fit into a certain stereotype or expectation of society of who we should be and who we are at any given age.
And I guess we're also so influenced by visually the culture that we live in now as well. There's so much on social media, there's so much online, we have so much more access to what the sort of perfect stereotypical female looks like, and that can be quite misleading.
Absolutely. I think social media and media in general have selected perhaps 10% of the female population globally, and then they're presenting that 10% as the ideal. And it doesn't matter where you're from, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter your life story or your face's story. You're expected to fit into that 10%, even though you are part of the other 90. So what we do here, and what I really am passionate about, is getting to understand your face. And part of understanding your face is understanding you as a human being. It's understanding your personality, understanding your goals, your ambitions, your own concerns about what you should look like. Why do you feel that in attaining a certain look, you're going to be a certain person? If we can understand that between the two of us, we can give you whatever it is you need to get there visually. But really, it has to come from somewhere within, and my job is to understand that first before I do anything to the face.
It's really beautiful, and it also sounds like you're really celebrating then the face that's in front of you, pulling out their strengths, the things that the patient perhaps particularly loves about their appearance.
Yes, our face tells a story. It tells everybody else who we are, tells them where we've been. I mean, even when I do Botox for my own face, I want to leave some wrinkles behind, because I don't come from a background where a smooth face at the age of 40 is a realistic expectation. Compared to what I've been through, I feel that my face needs to, maybe not too much, but it needs to tell a little bit of the journey that I've been through. And that human expression of your face and that expression of your personality through your face and your image is really what sets you apart from everybody else. We spend so much of our lives as women in general trying to fit in and trying to camouflage, but then something happens when you hit a certain age and you think, actually, I want to be in my own power. I want to be in my own authenticity and my authentic self, and I don't want to hide anymore. So I'm coming here for you to restore that confidence. I'm not coming here for you to copy-paste somebody else's face onto my face.
I love that. It's that sort of focus on the authenticity of the face and the person sat in front of you, and not sort of blending into a homogenous version of what society or what we think we need to be. I think that's really empowering. Tell us a little bit about your subspecialism, which is all about restoring and strengthening the voice, because this is something that I've never come across before in aesthetics, and now more than ever it seems like it's a really pivotal and an important thing to us to really be looking at.
Yes, absolutely. What I would say about what I do is I'm an ear, nose and throat surgeon. I'm used to operating on the face and the neck. The voice is a very delicate subspecialty of this, and it's all to do with expression. I never really understood, initially, hindsight is a great thing, as to why I actually ended up being an ENT surgeon. But I struggled massively with my own sense of identity because I was a refugee child to the UK from Iran. So I moved when I was 13, didn't speak a word of English, and I didn't know who I am and where I fitted in. And somehow I was guided by the divine hand towards ENT, where it's all about expression. It's all about your senses. And your senses are all about how you perceive the world and how you are perceived. So in my job, that's what I do. I restore senses. And as part of that, when I started to do aesthetics, I realized that in surgery, my ability to be creative was taken away. So I actually started aesthetics because I wanted to be creative and express beauty and bring beauty back into my own life. And through that, the two just married very well. This has never been done before worldwide, where an ENT surgeon has the ability in a space created by somebody incredibly intelligent that allows you to express both medical and aesthetic elements of what you do. So that's the voice restoration is, again, about senses and brings you all the way around to your authenticity and your sense of being and who you are. So that's what we're doing here with Ida and Mark.
And I feel that so much now we're talking about this collision between these worlds, the medical, the aesthetic, the wellness, and it feels like this is all wrapped up in what you're doing. What are the sort of conditions that you treat? I mean, when we talk about restoring, strengthening the voice, what is the average patient coming to you for? Is this highly niche, or is this something that actually all of us could benefit from, that maybe all of us in some way over the course of life might start to identify with?
Absolutely. With what's going on worldwide with healthcare and lack of services, lack of money, lack of everything, preventative care in medicine is massively neglected, and ENT and voice specially is not immune to that. There are various sort of conditions that we can talk about, but generally speaking, it's either a malignant condition caused by some type of cancer or it is benign. Benign conditions are often related to stress, your lifestyle factors, smoking, drinking alcohol, heartburn, reflux, overuse of voice, that sort of thing. At Ouronyx, we are focused on those benign conditions, and we have a referral system intact for any malignancy that I might pick up. But we are really focused on treating those patients, but also for the first time ever in the history of laryngology, bringing a preventative measure to the market. And what that means is having your voice screened the same way you come to Ouronyx and you will have a scan of your face or your hair, and it tells you about your skin health and your scalp health. The same way you come to me, we have a conversation, I examine you, and we have a camera that we can put, very fine, thin camera, don't panic, through the nose to the back of the throat that lets us both have a look at your voice box, probably for the first time.
That's incredible. And what are you looking for when you look on that scan? What should we see, and what might you be seeing if things aren't in the right sort of health condition?
So we are looking at the consistency of the musculature of your voice box. We're looking at your vocal cords, the way they move, if there's any growth on them, any nodules, any restrictions that could potentially explain why you lose your voice on a frequent basis, or why your voice is gravelly, or why you're not able to project your voice. So there's a range of things that we are looking for, but it allows for a dynamic assessment, meaning I can ask you to speak as we both are looking on the screen as what's happening in your voice box.
And it's so interesting because these are all very physical symptoms, what you're alluding to, but I think the connotation of not being able to project, not being able to communicate, I think that can have a really detrimental effect on confidence, and it can really sort of diminish that element of human connection, can't it?
Absolutely. I think people fall into a couple of categories. There are people who use their voice for their job, and so not having a voice means not having a job. And we see that in singers, we see it in teachers, we see it in anyone who is basically on phone conversation basis, which is majority of people. And not being able to be understood essentially means that they're not able to work. And we do see that group of people as well. But the population generally is aging. And globally, 40% of people over the age of 60 are actually affected by some type of voice concern. The issue with
And
the
at that age, sorry
Sure.
to interrupt, but that's where it becomes so important as well to have these human connections. You know, we saw it in lockdown, didn't we, where an older, vulnerable category of patient was really sort of kept away from society, and that not being able to talk with people on a regular basis, I think, had a really negative impact on general well-being.
Absolutely. I mean, working for the NHS, my general perception was, before I looked into global health, that in aging population, majority of the concerns are for diabetes or cardiovascular ailments, but actually is mental health that costs the NHS the most amount of money. And majority of that cost is for the people that are in the aging population over the age of 60. And again, 60 is a very random age to pick. That doesn't mean you are elderly when you hit 60. It's just our medical perception of what happens to your voice because of everything you've been through up until that point. But mental health is one of the biggest issues, and it is proven through many research papers that have been published that people are much more prone to being isolated, to go into severe depression, and actually to perhaps pass away before their time because of that complete lack of connection to others.
Well, it's really good that you're taking a preventative approach to this. I really feel like, as somebody who speaks a huge amount on these events, I could really benefit from this voice scan, so I might have to come and find you afterwards for that. What are the treatments that you can do? So how are you restoring strength to the voice, sort of within the confines of a clinic like Ouronyx?
Sure. Again, it would depend on the cause of it, but we can use Botox and fillers, the same products that most of you are familiar with that's used on the face. We can use this in the voice box. What I bring to the table, essentially, from my point of view as a laryngologist, is that majority of these treatments were available, say, 15 years ago, but we could only do them under general anesthetic. And as anybody who's used Botox before or fillers, this is not a permanent solution, so you will need to repeat this every 2 to 3 months, or with filler every 6 to 8 months, which meant that you would essentially need to be put to sleep that frequently, which is very detrimental to your health. So over the last 4 to 5 years, there are niche people that are training us to be able to do this under local anesthetic, which is absolutely incredible. And I was lucky enough to be trained by 2 of the pioneers in Scotland who brought that local anesthetic treatment to the market in the UK. So it is very, very niche, but if you can be less invasive, and if you can allow people to have that bit of their identity back without having to go to sleep every 2 months, then I think it's worth investing in and bringing that into light for education purposes as well.
Absolutely. And I'd love to talk a little bit about the micrografting that you do here. Slight tangent. So this is all about restoring confidence through the hair and the scalp. And this seems to me that it fits in also to the subject of mental health. And I know Eleanor and I are going to explore this a little later, but this is something you're doing a huge amount of now at Ouronyx. So can you explain to us exactly what happens within the micrografting technique?
Yes, sure. So with the micrografting technique that we do is for androgenic hair loss, which is male or female pattern hair loss. That is genetically predetermined for everybody, so it very much depends on your general health and your background. But essentially, if you do fit the criteria and we feel that you would benefit from that after you've had a scalp scan here with us, it's done under local anesthetic. It takes a very short period of time, maybe half an hour to do the whole thing. If you're Dr. Haller, maybe quicker. You take a few micrographs, about 2.5 millimeters deep, from the hairline there, and you put it in a machine that we have, add saline to it, which makes it injectable, and then you inject it in the areas of the scalp that you have the problem with. And that helps basically the strength of the hair follicles you have, but also encourages new hair growth.
And I imagine the confidence that it restores to the patient is quite extraordinary as well.
Absolutely, and particularly is one of the treatments that the gentlemen who come to see us are very open to. So it's good for
I have
everybody.
actually sent my husband into the London branch for this. I can attest to the power of this treatment. It's not bad. Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Maya. That was so fascinating. Lovely to hear from you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is the brilliant Elena, all the way from London. We're very honoured to have you join us over here in Dubai, Elena, bringing some London expertise to Dubai. Thank you so much for being here. I mean, many of us define ourselves by our hair, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, because I feel that as our hair starts to thin, as it changes with age, it can have such a detrimental effect on how we feel about ourselves as human beings, as women. Is this something that you see going on with the women in your clinic in Belgravia?
Hair loss at the moment is something that is a big cause of concern for everyone. if you try to understand that hair is a first form of expression as a human, because you start since you're a little girl, having your hair done, try to, you know, as you teenage years, later on, and after you get to an older age, where your confidence could be incredibly impacted by your hair. And this I can speak about for myself. I did the micrografting, and I had to tell you I did it a year ago, because I lost all my hair through menopause.
I mean, your hair looks amazing now, but actually menopause, you're right, the hormonal fluctuations, pregnancy,
honestly,
this is sometimes where we see the hair loss.
Was one of my, you know, I got to the point that if I could avoid going out, I would avoid it going out at night time.
Really,
so
because you were so worried about the hair loss.
It's been a really big impact. And, you know, when I finally had the courage to go and do it, because it's something that you're always a little worried about doing it, and I was worried about the patch of hair, the scalp that was going to be taken away at the back of my hair. And when I did it, I saw the results 3 weeks later. My temples, the hair starting to grow, my hair felt thicker, and all of a sudden, remember, in November, I did it in November last year, my hair was here. And now you can just see my hair. And it's incredible. It's one of the things that made me feel the best and the most, you know, I'm older. Unfortunately, these things do happen. I lost my hair. I'm 56. What am I going to do? But I can tell you that these treatments changed completely my life, more than anything else I've done.
I mean, age is a factor, but, you know, as we sort of just touched upon there as well, menopause, post-pregnancy, stress, you know, not getting enough protein into your diet. A lot of the weight loss medications are disrupting the pathways now that contribute to hair loss. There's a lot at play, and our hair is sadly taking the brunt of it.
Lack of iron. Remember, everybody is on Ozempic or is on some kind of a diet, so women don't have enough nutrients.
Everyone in Belgravia.
Yeah, everyone in Belgravia. Everyone, you know, don't have enough nutrients in your body, so, you know, there is a lot of causes. You know, stress as well is something that it's really taking a big thing, in a big jump. Also, if you've been unwell and you had surgery, you know, if you have a general anesthetic, you tend to lose hair afterwards. After giving birth, you know, it does happen. So it's a lot of, you know, hair is one expression of yourself that it's very important. But as much as important doing all these things you do, it's also very important that your hairdresser is honest and tells you the truth.
Yeah, that's so true. It's about the right practitioner partnership, isn't it? You know, I think that's sort of applicable, whether it's an aesthetic doctor, a hairdresser. You have to have a partnership with somebody that you trust.
Yes.
Otherwise, you can spend a lot of money and you can waste a lot of time doing things that aren't appropriate.
You know, for example, the classical things, keratin treatments, protein treatments that you do, K18, they're all very, very dangerous if they're not done properly. So, for example, for somebody like me, that I color my hair every 10 days, I cannot have a keratin treatment because my hair will not be able to take the amount of protein.
Because it overloads the hair.
It overloads. But if you're a young girl that have a color done twice a year, absolutely it's not a problem. But as you're getting older, you really need to be careful of what you put into your hair. The use of dry shampoo, unless you clean your scalp very well every single week, it's really not a good thing because it makes your follicle very sensitive and you will end up having hair loss.
It builds up on the scalp, doesn't it? And I think we've got this newfound appreciation of scalp health. In addition, you know, obviously it starts at the scalp. Healthy hair starts there.
Yeah, and it's very important that you look at everything you do every day. You know, you need to have a routine for your hair, which is basically a way of living. You need to be sure that you don't use a brush, but you use a wide tooth comb to brush your hair. You need to make sure that you know you do not brush your hair or comb your hair when your hair is wet. Your hair wet is the most delicate.
So what do you do?
You basically you pat dry, and if you're at home, let it dry a little bit, and after you come in with a wide tooth comb. But unless you're at the hairdresser, they know what they do. But you know, try to let your hair kind of air dry a little bit before you put in your brush. And I wouldn't put a brush through it.
Yeah,
either.
exactly. And you were saying to me, actually, offline, you were saying don't use the hair elastics as well. Always clip the hair up, for example.
Yeah, clip your hair up or use the elastic if you want to with the one with the silk. Don't put your hair in very tight ponytails or something that it's really tight because, of course, it damages the hair. What else is, silk pillows is one of the best things that you can use while you sleep. So your hair, especially if you have longer hair, to keep the integrity of your hair last.
I brought mine on the plane over to Dubai with me, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, sometimes as well. I took it into hospital when I had my son. Sometimes when it's a pillow that's not your own as well, it's just a nice way, and your hair gets the benefit of it, and your skin.
It's all these things are very, very, very important. What you do every day for your hair, your routine makes a big change.
Because for a lot of us, we sort of say, it's not that the hair is necessarily shedding, it's not that it's that it's breaking. We can't grow it past a certain point. For a lot of us, our hair reaches the shoulders or sort of slightly further, and then it won't go any further. But it's these sort of little everyday tips, isn't it, that keeps it in peak condition.
Is when the client comes in and says, my hair doesn't grow. Well, your hair does grow. It's just that it's
breaking at the ends.
So, and all the products that you have in the market are all for growing hair, but you need to make sure that you look after your hair this far down, because your hair, if you're healthy, it does grow. Is the way you look after your hair that breaks. Your hairdressers depends how what treatment you're having, what products they tell you to use.
And what about things like blow dries? I mean, you do a great blow dry at Neville Hair Beauty. I used to spend the early years of my Condé Nast life in your salon, just having daily blow dries. But that's obviously detrimental to the hair. What can we do? Again, we sort of want to, our hair does communicate a lot. We do want it to look a certain way. So how do we do that without compromising the health?
The secret of a good blow dry is a good shampoo. You need to make sure that your shampoo is done properly in the salon. The water has to be tepid, not too hot. And you always need to have a cold rinse, so it closes the cuticles of your hair, so less damaging for when the hairdresser is going to be combing your hair. Also, the hairdresser should always use a wooden brush with natural bristles. Now, it's not very easy to use a wooden brush, so you need to be quite skilled to be able to do that, especially when they're going to do the curls on your hair.
Why a wooden brush with natural bristles? What is the value in that specific type of hairbrush?
Because if you have a metal brush, you create the same heat as the heating tools. So
it's not channeling extra heat to sort of kill the hair.
Yes, and also the problems that you do have when you have a plastic bristles as well is very damaging for your hair. Is not conducive to the styling, especially if you had to twist the brush in a certain way and pull it.
So one of those old style sort of bore sort of brush is...
Yes, and that is the best type of brush you can use. You also need to use a heat protector and possibly a cream at the end that will protect the ends of your hair. When it's done.
And what about when it comes to hair color? Because again, you spoke about sort of age-related hair loss, but I think, obviously hair color is something that a lot of us cling to as time goes by. It's a way of reinforcing our identity. Sometimes we embrace it, and that's a way of discovering a new identity, but it becomes more difficult, obviously, to color the hair as we age. So how do you sort of go about managing that, retaining that sense of self, but also, again, not further damaging the hair?
Okay, you have to be careful what the products a hairdresser uses into your colors. So K18, again, as I say to you before, unless there is an incredible amount of moist put after the treatment, your hair is going to become too brittle. So you don't want a K18 at all. Olaplex, it's the big no-no.
I feel like Olaplex was very hot a few years ago, and I don't really hear so much about it now.
No, because it's been sold, changed formulation. It's definitely not. But the new one that we're using in the salon that doesn't change the shades of color is called Epres, which is very easy to use. And you put it on a color, your hairdresser put it on a color, and does your color. Now, there are different type of color that you can use. For example, for myself, which I color my hair every 10 days, I use, color without ammonia. And then in between colors, I have a vegetable color to keep the shine and to keep my hair as healthy as possible. Of course, this is for somebody of my age, but if somebody is much younger, the products used will be completely different. It all depends on the person in front of you and the integrity of the hairdressers. The hairdresser wants to sell you products. Okay, I'm a hairdresser.
Says a hairdresser.
I'm not a hairdresser, but I work. I have salons. So we want to sell you products. We want to sell you treatments. You have to be careful that treatment is actually the one for you. And as I say, for example, at Neville's, they all know that I hate keratin treatments. Okay, so the deal is, any ladies that over 40 that wants a keratin treatment need to speak to me. And I go there and I tell them the truth. Broke all my hair. I was left with no hair. So it's your choice. Do you want to do it or not? If you want to do it, we're going to be doing, or we're going to be doing a test and see how it's going to go after 2 or 3 colors. Because the keratin treatment looks amazing the first time. Fabulous. You've done it. It's incredible. You do color the first time after the treatment and your hair looks amazing. The second time, you're starting to see that there is a little something, maybe the colorist didn't do something right. The third time, your hair starting to break. So then you go to the colorist and you say, you broke my hair. But it's not the colorist.
Exactly. And sadly, it takes a few cycles to see that damage.
Too much protein, too hard.
And talking about damage, what are your thoughts on hair extensions, hair tapes? Because I have hair tapes. I feel like they give you a huge amount of confidence. They make a blow dry look amazing. But are they ultimately long-term going to be detrimental to hair health as we age?
To be honest, anything you put in your hair is going to be detrimental to your hair long run. Okay? If you keep it for a short period of time, it's fine. But one thing also that you have to think depends on the thickness of your hair. When you put the sandwich of the hair extensions, of the tape hair extensions, what I found, it's better if you put just one. Instead of
so you
full
don't do the sandwich, you just put one on the front or one on the back. Yeah.
You don't. You just put one on the back.
Because then that's less weight and sort of pulling on the hair as a result.
And that is so much easier to be able to handle and to get your hair to a healthy. In a healthy position where you can do without them.
I must say though, actually, since having the hair tapes, my hair has grown, and I'm sure it's as a result of having that sort of extra fullness. I don't have them for length. It's more about body volume, that thickness, that sort of width that it gives the face as well.
I guess you blow dry less?
Yeah, possibly. As a result, every day is a good hair day now, quite frankly. So that means probably you have to do a little bit less, don't you? You've mentioned sort of aging hair quite a few times within the conversation. What are your thoughts on sort of embracing age through hair versus perhaps following trends? I mean, you're sort of very tapped into what's new, what's upcoming, what's the future of hair. But how important is it that we either follow that or actually that we retain our individuality?
I think each one of us need to follow their individuality, because otherwise it's what it's all about. We need to be truthful ourselves. We need to accept what we want to be, and hair is just an expression of who you are. It's the first things you see on a person. It's the things that is with you 24/7. It defines you, because if you have long, beautiful hair, is actually a classist kind of society.
Yeah, that's true. And
also it divides you into segments. In Belgravia, everybody has longer hair and long layers. In Shoreditch, everybody's got different hair. But it's a choice that people do make.
You said that to me. You said hair grows by postcode. And I didn't know what you meant, but it's so true.
It's true. Now, if you're actually looking at it, you see, the famous Chelsea blow dry. If you go to do the Chelsea blow dry in Brixton, it's not going to work.
It's so true.
So, but, hair depends very much on the person and who you are and the lifestyle you have.
And how much confidence you have, because I think sometimes to buck the trends and be individual and retain that sense of uniqueness, that takes a lot of strength of character as well, not to follow the crowd.
Yes, but this is, as women, we're all very strong. We all know what we want. And I think you maybe could make this mistake when you're younger, but when you're older, you know what you want. And you don't have anything to prove. And I think it's a form of confidence, that self-awareness that we all need to have.
I love that. That's such a strong note to end on. Thank you, Elena. And actually, it's a beautiful bridge to what Ida's going to be talking about, which is all things self-awareness. And I have to just start by saying a big thank you for hosting us here today at Ouronyx, Ida. We've hosted a number of talks at the London Outpost, which is equally beautiful. And I always really look forward to our conversations because Ida has a very different perspective on what we should all be striving for through aesthetic treatment, and a real sort of in-depth fascination, I think, with the human mind, which is also very integral to what we're talking about today. But let's talk a little bit about the concept of self-esteem, because I think it's been a reoccurring leitmotif throughout everything we've spoken about on the panel, and I'd love to get your sort of psychological take on this. What is driving low self-esteem today, and why are these sort of concerns becoming more prevalent in society, and particularly amongst women?
Yeah, I think it's a very complex topic. So whatever I say here in 3.5 minutes will not do it justice. But it's probably important to say that self-esteem is kind of folded out of 3 major elements. One is the personality and core set of values we were born with, and we can do relatively small amount of things around it. The other one is growing up, maturing, and developing a number of experiences that are forming us. And then the third, probably the most important large component, is the social norms and the setup where we live, right? So thinking about hair, we can do many stupid things as we age with our hair and experiment, and it's all fine. But socially, there is one thing a lady cannot afford in her life anywhere in the world, is to get bald.
To actually lose her hair, yeah.
And with aging population, unfortunately, age group with Elena and me, 50 plus, you start seeing it. Hormonal changes are contributing to it. My mom had more hair than me. I have a lot of it. I can see she's balding day in, day out nowadays, right? No, at the age of 80, hopefully I will live longer than she does. I can't allow that to happen, right? Because it's going to signal that I don't care, or I am not as healthy as I used to be, or something's wrong with me and I need to address it. So addressing it at 75 is probably too late, but finding solutions at 50 is the right thing
the preventative solutions, so that you don't lose that sense of identity. Correct. And so that you continue to communicate the things that make you appear strong.
Exactly. So blending the 3 elements together, each contributes to the element of self-esteem we grow. And the fact that we live in a world that is becoming extremely competitive doesn't help us, right? We compete with ourselves every single day how to be better so we can find our spot in this competitive world easier, right?
That's so interesting that you say we compete with ourselves, because actually we often talk about sort of in competition with one another, industry, society, whatever it might be, men, women, but you're so right. I think you've hit the nail on the head. We're in competition with ourselves a lot of the time, exactly. Particularly our former self sometimes. Yeah.
It really starts with us, and it leads me to the level that I'm more passionate about than self-esteem as such. It's really the self-awareness part, right? Because it stems into self-esteem directly. When you have insecurities about yourself because you don't know yourself well enough, it impacts that you easily attribute certain mistakes we all make every single day to wrong things. The statistics unfortunately doesn't help, saying that only 10% of global population is born with high self-esteem naturally. 90% of us need to learn it and develop it tough way through life, right? So it's extremely important that we emphasize that early in life stage, that mature group of people translate that into younger generation to accept the fact that the more you learn in early stage hard way, the easier life and your own self-acceptance will be later on. So
it's so true, you know, with age comes experience, and we often host talks on hormonal fluctuation, on menopause, and I always think it's the greatest irony that we talk about this stage of life that we reach, and our hormones might be in a state of chaos, but actually we're at the most confident and capable and professionally successful and personally self-aware, to use your expression. And it's such a dichotomy that we probably spend some of the prime years of our lives not with that self-esteem.
Exactly.
And it's sad. What can we do to cultivate greater self-awareness, as you put it?
That's a catch-22, because normally there are 2 elements of it. One is social interactions with other people that are a bit of a mirror for our blind spots, telling us where our strengths and weaknesses are. So it's really a direct communication and interaction with others. And the other one that comes later in life in self-reflection, right? So you reflect on certain feedback collected in interactions with other people and try to understand what are the triggering points for positives and negatives in terms of your reactions and thoughts that you have. Now, modern world, unfortunately, is changing the style of communication and interaction. So 20 years ago, when I was rushing in my career, making stupid mistakes, a good mentor would push me aside, have an hour of a conversation with me, telling me, look, you are doing this wrong, you have huge potential, think about it, slow down. Really a serious human conversation that changed my career perspectives. Nowadays, you go social media, you learn rough way what people see in you that is right or wrong. So I think every young person is so much more exposed than we ever were to criticism. Unfortunately, that comes easier out than any kind of a praise nowadays, and it impacts self-esteem and self-awareness in so many negative ways. So with the change of society and the way we communicate with each other, I think self-awareness is going to be a topic to really look deep for the future, because we need to shift gears. What is okay to be shared in a negative way publicly?
I agree, and I think you're right to identify those sort of new realities, new technologies as being a little bit of a hurdle for us to overcome now. Would you say then that somewhat the answer lies in getting better at human communication all over again, and the face-to-face and the shared in-person experiences, rather than everything being on a screen and, you know, scrolled through on your phone at sort of fast speed?
Communication for sure, but I would also say basic care, right? I think for our general health, particularly the mental part, finding niche places where you can have a trustworthy person to come and expose your insecurities in a way that you don't need to worry where it will go. It stays behind closed doors, you have a solid conversation, you learn, you get out as a more rich person. It's extremely important. And I see a role that aesthetic industry, be it regulated properly, can have in the future in that segment, because you have a lot of young people that are on a mission to find who they really are, often comes to aesthetic doctor seeking for help, because in your 20s, you don't want to stand out, right? You want to blend in. So you come to Dr. Maya asking for lips of Kylie Jenner. That's expected, right? So having a solid, proper ethical doctor saying, you know what, you don't need that. You have a bit of money in your pocket, go travel the world, buy a good sunscreen. See me after 35 is something that will help those decisions being moved in a way where they belong. I think, unfortunately, for as long as aesthetic industry is driven by commercial gains, this is driving us in the opposite direction. But it's changing. Regulation is stepping up, and I'm confident in the next block of aesthetic evolution, this will be more pronounced and more put back where it belongs.
I agree, and this sort of ties into your concept here of the mindful aesthetics as well, and I think that's, you know, you've just touched on it, it's relevant to every single generation. It's not even as we are, call it aging, it's actually coming from the very sort of bubbling up generation who are learning to come to terms with their identity, understanding what they want to express, what they want to hide from, who they want to be in so many ways. I mean, is there anything outside of sort of further regulation in the industry, which is sadly beyond some of our control, is there anything else that we can be doing as human beings almost to foster that greater self-acceptance in the younger generation who otherwise are going to fall privy to you know, a very sort of driven, consumer sort of focused aesthetics industry?
I think it's just coming back again to that base of care and being kind to oneself and others, and try to embrace the fact that imperfection is a path to hell. If you don't start early in life earning the trust in yourself being who you are and good enough for whatever you want to achieve in life. So, you know, striving for perfection, we know it's not leading anywhere. Embracing vulnerabilities, speaking about why being imperfect, it's actually okay and badly needed in early stage of life. It opens up the conversations for really meaningful personal development, particularly in young generation, when that support system is so much needed to accept the fact that we all have positives and negatives in who we are, and one without the other, it's actually less rich.
It's so true. And even the language, that we use, we might say imperfection, but actually we talk about beauty being an imperfection. And actually sometimes that just means uniqueness. And again, it goes back to understanding who we are as individuals. And it's really fascinating. So Ouronyx, I don't know if any of you are aware, but they conduct a really interesting, you do scans and screenings for the voice and for the skin and for the scalp, but you also do one essentially for the persona of the human being who's sat in front of you, don't you? Can you explain a little bit? I've already signed up to go and have this done myself afterwards because I want to know what sort of a patient or human being I am fundamentally.
Yeah, so, it comes obviously from my background and the passion that I'm really very vocal about the importance of self-awareness at any stage of life and contributing to that in any possible way. Personally, it's very important for me. So in our overall journey every client has in Ouronyx, we have installed in the onboarding process, whenever you come for the first time to visit us here, a small questionnaire that basically results with a snapshot of who you are as a person. We name you in a certain way, we tell you what are your core traits, what you should know, how those traits reflect in your beauty routines, so a conversation with the doctor can really be meaningful. But it's also more an indication for the whole team in that journey to support your needs better. Because it all boils down that if I have 4 of us here and 4 of us are 4 very different personalities, the same information one of you would tell us, we will hear with 4 very different angles. We will interpret it in very different ways. And unless I know how you will hear me, I can't reach you in a way that is meaningful for you and addresses your needs. So the reason of having it here was much more for the whole team to serve our clients' needs in a more pronounced way, rather than talking about personality per se, but I think it's an eye-opener also for certain things being recognized. Oh, it's actually who I am, and it's fine because we position it only in a positive context.
And we always talk about an individualized treatment plan, and nothing feels more individualized than actually getting to understand the individual in front of you. And actually, you spoke about this earlier when you spoke about self-awareness involves cultivating a greater understanding of who you are. I think sometimes when we understand almost not our place in society, where we fit in, but we understand a little bit about how we are perceived by other human beings, that can be really helpful in us understanding, I suppose, how we do communicate and how we can gain that confidence.
Sure, 100%. And it's kind of bringing, again, the awareness up of where potentially maybe triggers I should just be more mindful about, I should ask more questions around to understand it better, and to be prepared that often the conflict in a communication is just coming from our brain, not any bad intention, but the same thing. So we have ENT specialists here. The conflict is not happening here, right? It's happening here because we are interpreting the same message in a completely different way. So knowing self, but also knowing the other side, helps you adapt that communication that works for both sides more smoothly and develop that relationship then as an aftermath in a more successful and more productive way.
I'm quite interested. What impact do the people that we surround ourselves with on a daily basis have to us as well? Is it important to cultivate a close circle around us, friends, family, colleagues who we strive to emulate or who we admire or who support us in terms of our confidence? Because I feel that's something that we could all do on the day-to-day and in a very sort of tangible and meaningful way.
There is no simple answer to it because it will depend on
your personality.
None of my
questions are.
So it depends on who as a person you are, will depend on what is going to be the size and the type of a circle of support you need around yourself, right? I am the person that doesn't need a lot of people. They need to bring value to my life and they need to inspire me to be better every single day. There is the opposite type of a character that really thrives and grows in life by surrounding themselves with a large community of people because that's where the energy comes from. So it's very individual what we need. The more we know what we need, the easier it is to address it.
We talk about being introverts or extroverts, don't we? And some of us take the energy from others, some of us get the energy from being by ourselves.
Sure.
Probably really boils it down to the basics.
But it's also the capacity to grow yourself in both directions, right? Because I'm an introverted person, but in my job I can't allow myself to be one, right? So how do you marry the two? Monday to Friday, I know that I landed 2 days ago. There is not a single person in the team that I haven't spent at least an hour with talking and so on. It drains me out. I said, Elena was so kind this morning saying that my hair looks good. I was so tired last night I couldn't wash it, so I was feeling so bad knowing I'll meet her this morning. But I'm just trying to reflect. I know myself well enough that if I have to speak with 10 people and there are difficult topics, I will need to rest. I will need to be on my own in the evening. I am on my own flying back to London on Sunday. I'm glad about it. 8 hours in the plane with music in my ear. I know I need it. And I'm not harsh on myself because of that. When I was younger and I didn't understand that well, was pushing myself to be out every single weekend because that's what expected. It killed me because a demanding job through the week, plus you go out and you don't recalibrate over the weekend, I killed my health. I don't do that anymore, right?
But that's the self-awareness again, the experience that comes with age. And I think a lot of it goes back to being kind to yourself. And I think we don't often understand what that means when we say be kind to yourself. But sometimes it's just putting yourself first.
Yeah, exactly. And accepting the fact that what lifts you up and brings you down needs to be in balance. And you are the owner of that balance, how to calibrate that. If we don't know when to say no, we feel it, but we are doing the damage. And it's a personal responsibility to stop it or keep it up.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Thank you, Ida. That was really, really interesting as always. Super fascinating. That very much brings us to the end of this morning's conversation. I hope you'll all agree. I found it completely fascinating listening to all of you. And it struck me as we sort of went through the panel that we're communicating in so many different ways. You know, it might be verbally, it might be through our appearance, it might be through our body language, or even for, most of the time, sadly, probably through Instagram or WhatsApp. But I think it's really interesting because each of you have explored how detrimental all of these different forms of communication, if not approached sort of with mindfulness, I suppose, and with the right support network in place, how detrimental they can be to our self-confidence. So it's been really brilliant to learn about all of the different techniques and therapies and treatments and everyday life hacks that can be really valuable in restoring that sense of self-esteem to us. We do have time for questions if anyone would like to ask any of our brilliant panelists anything. Otherwise, I'm sure we've got some time maybe downstairs with all of you if there are any one-to-ones. Were there any questions? Oh, lady in the front.
Just wondering, is it the hair grafting?
Micrografting.
Micrografting. Is there a certain age, like in your 20s, is that something you think, or?
Okay, that's for you. Age.
No worries.
Because I had it done, but that is specific.
Sure. So with micrografting, obviously it's androgenic hair loss, so it's hormone related, and you notice that pattern of hair loss, particularly in women on the temples, in gentlemen on the crown of their head and the temples with the hairline going back. It does affect people at a certain age, probably around in their 50s going on from there. But you do also get premature androgenic hair loss as well, which is again pre-genetically determined. So it's individual, but we can assess that sort of in a sort of black and white way with our trichoscopy scan of the scalp, and we can actually see if you would benefit from the treatment or not.
Is it quick to do that?
Yes. Yeah, very quick.
I just wanted to say, one thing we found out when I had the test done was that every single follicle of your hair is supposed to be producing between 3 to 4 hair. In my case, my follicles were healthy, they were producing only 1 hair. 3 weeks later, when I went back to have a check, because I could see that I had an incredible growth, we realized that the follicles that were dead, they were dead. But the ones that were healthy starting to produce 3 to 4 hair. So consequently, I had a much more volume on my hair. So it's very, when you understand how it works, it's very simple and it makes a lot of sense. And, the difference that you're starting to see the baby hair at the beginning are a little bit annoying, I have to tell you, because you can't do anything with them. Yes, they tend to go everywhere. But honestly, you're starting to see the volume. You feel happy. You go into the bathroom in the morning and that 3.5 seconds that you go into the bathroom and look yourself in the mirror and all of a sudden you have hair. It's just like, it's great.
But it's also really worth doing the scan, because I remember when we bought the scanner, which was kind of a 1.5 years back, in training program, one of the guinea pigs was one of the nurses in London, and then Dr. Marco, I could see him coming pale. She was 34 at that time, saying, oh my God, I need to sit you down, you have alopecia. So no one expected it. We were training and yeah, she had thinner hair, but would she not detect it? No one would ever be able to spot it. So it's early detection is really important.
And with that, spotting it earlier, can that then be able to put preventative methods?
Yeah, sure. Then doctors can design basically an annual program with you. They can look into your bloods. They can support from so many angles.
But that's also why it's so important to come to a reputable clinic where they can actually do those initial diagnostics. Otherwise, we can be doing all of these treatments and following all of these trends, but actually if we don't know if we're suitable for it or if that's even the right thing, then it's a colossal waste of everyone's time and sort of energy, isn't it? Were there any other questions? Lady at the front.
The future in hormonal testing or blood testing or managing what's going on internally through a kind of test? And is that something that you guys are looking at?
Do you want a menopausal answer or you want a doctor's?
All of it. I feel like whenever I've had hormones, it's very really dependent on the time of the month, the time of day, what you eat, and so I guess it seemed to me that there must be a future where we're going to end up testing every day at home, or as diabetics manage glucose responses, are we going to be moving into that with hormonal patterns and responses, and how close are we to getting to an efficient way of managing hormones and that kind of?
I can give you a very personal and business perspective on it, and then Maya can contribute from a medical side. We are actively looking into it, really speaking with doctors even today into how to design longitudinal approach to looking into the stage of your health as you grow older with us here. I think it's the future. I personally believe that doctors like Maya with time can exchange traditional GPs from 15 years ago, right? Because if you have the willingness to preventatively look a couple of times a year in what's your inner state, you are on a good track, and it can be done next to the visit for a bit of Botox. Now, the ovular market situation is going crazy, and there are so many bad things happening out there that I am kind of stepping away from saying, oh, let's just do everything that others are doing as well, because that's also wrong, right? You need to be specialized, looking into things that are contributing to procedures that you can then supply and demonstrate here as well. I wouldn't just go broad into becoming a GP, that we will not do, but specialized things that are contributing to hair loss, the quality of the skin, the impact in this area where we are specializing, this is definitely to come and relatively soon.
Yes, and just from the medical point of view, there are studies being done currently into not just the type of change in hormones in women and men, but also the impact that it has on their general health. At the moment, it's very varied because obviously everybody's unique in their lifestyle choices as well. It is something that is becoming an arm of medicine. It has been over the last couple of years called functional medicine. And my perspective is obviously from what I've understood from the functional medicine arm, that's the way it's practiced in the UK, which is focused on preventative measures. So if you do go to a functional medicine doctor and you give them your symptoms, there are panels that they can do, blood panels that they can do, and other types of tests, and even skin biopsy tests in terms of any allergies or reactions or change in late onset sensitivity to certain products, that sort of thing. So that is definitely part of the future of medicine. I think medicine generally is moving from cure to prevention because we simply globally cannot cope with the burden of disease at the moment. And all we have done really in medicine over the last 10 to 15 years, perhaps a little longer, is to learn how to prolong life, but not how to improve the quality of the years that we're given to people as extra. And so we are seeing more and more disease that we didn't used to see before, simply because people didn't live as long as they did and they didn't have detrimental lifestyles the way that they do now. So that's definitely something that is up and coming. I hope is in my lifetime, where it becomes like a normal thing to do when you go to a GP and they can treat you holistically and actually pay attention to what's happening in your bodies. as women at any given time, we have anywhere between 27 to 32 hormones running absolutely wild. So to keep up with that is it's a job, it's a full-time job. You need a doctor per person. But yes, with the monitoring systems, I think with diabetes and also Zoe, which I think is another thing that looks at your blood sugars and how your body hormonally responds to food, we can certainly adapt that same technology to see how your body reacts to environmental stressors, which would be anywhere from pollution and sun to what you're consuming, what you're thinking, and how your behavior is impacting your health. So it is not there yet, but it is in research years, and we now have an actual arm in medicine dedicated to that, which is very encouraging. I hope this answers a little bit.
You're so right, though. I think the sort of advent of the at-home devices, the wearables, everything is just giving us that sort of slightly deeper dive into our own health and wellness. And again, it sort of always just goes back to understanding our bodies a little better, doesn't it? Hopefully that was helpful. Were there any other questions before we finish? Okay, in which case, a very big thank you to Ouronyx for hosting us. Thank you to you all for coming. It's been amazing to have you here for the Week of Wellness. We'd love to have you back at future events, so please do follow us, sign up to our sort of wonderful community. And finally, a big thank you to our brilliant Beauty Triangle for all of your incredible wisdom, solutions, and general empowerment today. What a nice way to start the day. Thank you.